This is Storytellers and Storysellers live on tape. You're listening to me, Vineet Kanabar, on the IVM Podcast Network. We are live in studio recording this in this cold, quiet room. We're recording this in Bandra, and Bandra is very special to my guest on the show today. Before I tell you who that is, let me tell you the story of really buzzy restaurant that's taking over Bandra's nightlife. A few days ago, a few of my friends were like, hey man, we want to go to Silly and hang out. And I was like, Silly is a silly name for a restaurant, but it really intrigued me. It made me start wonder what a place like Silly would be like. Is it a nightclub? Is it a bar? Is it a dive bar? Is it a place you go to hang out and chill? Is it one of those places where you can do work from office or work from home in the daytime and then chill in the evening? As it turned out, it's a place where you can do all of those things. It gives me great joy, great pleasure to have Karan Nohria, the guy who runs Silly, on this show. Karan, welcome to Storytellers and Storysellers.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, man. Delighted to have you here. Delighted to come visit you at Silly a few days ago and get to experience the vibe. Like I said, you've built something that's very interesting, very different for the Bombay nightlife scene. What's also super interesting to me is that you're 22 years old.
Yeah.
And you started this when you were 20. Now, for my listeners, you'll find out through the course of my conversation that Karan does not sound anything like a 22-year-old. I think 22-year-olds now don't sound anything like 22-year-olds used to. Back in my time, I remember being 22 and being like footloose and fancy free in this universe. I had no ambition to start a podcast for that matter at that time. But 22-year-old Karan doesn't sound like anything like a 22-year-old guy. He started this restaurant a couple of years ago. Then the pandemic kicked in.
Yeah.
Then he started it after the pandemic. And now it's one of the buzziest restaurants in the city. Karan, let me start off by asking you to describe Silly in your own words, right? What did you set out to do and where have you reached with it so far?
So before I can tell you how Silly is and what it is, it was a different story altogether when I got into this industry.
Mm-hmm.
You've got resto bars, you've got fine dines, you've got bars, like how you said, you don't know what it is. Being a 20-year-old person, when I was 18, I was looking out to what to start and what not. Because I needed practical studies, I felt that can tell me what exactly do I want. And I'd never had a time, so I had a lot of family functions, a lot of family gatherings, and parents being okay, let's go here, let's go there. It's never been a way that we've all enjoyed together.
Right.
In such a way that, the food can be good, but my parents would like to have a drink, but they can't. Or there are times the music is not good, or you can't have different cuisines altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So there were bits and pieces all these years when we were I was thinking about it and whatnot. The first thing that clicked me was obviously the music and the food. Alcohol and the way the vibe can be was completely not in the topic initially. Because food is something that makes people happy. They want to get out to eat, and the amount of resto bars, the QSR formats, cloud kitchens and whatnot, there are way too many of them. You want to eat on a daily basis, something from your home or something like how you're working the whole day sometimes.
Right.
Your food is cold, you may just order something.
Yeah.
If you have a break, you may just go out with your friends, like you said, you're close by to Silly right now.
Yeah.
If you want to go for a couple of drinks, you're done with your work, you don't want to travel, you can just go down, right? And that's the easiest thing you want to do. So food was one thing that we went anywhere, whoever, whatever age category or whatever they like, they can go there and have whatever cuisine they want.
Sure.
So that was the first thing. Second thing was music for us. For music, for a matter of fact, because you don't want to listen to Bollywood the whole time.
Oh, man, I don't want to listen to Bollywood at any time. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and you don't wake up in the morning and be let's say you're driving around and whatnot. You don't listen to Bollywood. You listen to something that calms you down or makes you happy, or that's a different thing, right? When you're talking to people also, there's music going on behind. From matter of fact, it's just a background. Music is just supposed to be a background. That's exactly why music has this BPM, right? Exactly what it's got. So pump you up. And that was one genre that we had to kickstart with. So progressive house is one of them, and lo-fi was one of them that people feel like it's just there in the background, but you can still enjoy. Then came the vibe in it. Everybody loves Goa. Everybody loves Goa. The amount of people who traveled in the lockdown time where they went to Goa Goa did numbers.
Right.
2 years of lockdown.
Right. I think all of Delhi has moved to Goa for sure.
Even Bombay for a matter of
Right.
fact.
A lot of Bombay also, but Bombay to फिर भी हम आते जाते रहते हैं. Goa is like our second home. I feel like an entire neighborhood out of Delhi has just moved to Goa.
So that is something that people want to vibe with, right? Today, when you build an office or your home also, you want plants, you want it to look good aesthetic-wise, or the color combinations and all. You don't want to always see a black wall. And that is exactly what went down. We went we'll keep it subtle in a way that it's not in the eye, but it looks good.
Right.
And people like fancy stuff sometimes. And we want to keep more and more plants because of other reasons, okay, to keep it in a very different manner, global warming being there and whatnot, but also it makes you feel better. That's exactly why people say go for a walk.
Right.
All right. So that was the thing, like we kept bits and pieces from here and there, like areas all around the globe where people used to travel, why they go there, what is happening, why are we so different compared to like what other people are doing. Like this question came to my mind when the first time I went to socials.
Right.
It was a complete different format. The way you get your cutleries to your food structure, the music, the way you sit also, right? You don't have a proper sitting or you have proper sitting. It differs. That's exactly what we were looking for from bits and pieces and areas around the globe, that what does Bombay need?
Right.
And I think that's what we've done that well.
I love it, dude. And I've been there to meet you. I have a few friends who've been there, and everyone comes back with a very different experience, right? I'll share mine. I was very lucky to get a quick tour of the place. You've got an outdoor seating area, which, like you said, has a very Goa shack vibe, upscale shack anyway. Then you have this whole very Bombay inside family seating sort of area as well. There's a nice little corner where there's a very unique seating experience where there's a swing and stuff like that. And then there is the whole interior, right? I think what stood out to me was the little details, the little quirky fun stuff that you've tried to do with it, which is super Gen Z from where I see it, right? Very fresh. And again, I'm old, so I'll call anything fresh Gen Z at this point. But for example, if at any nightclub or any bar late in the evening, you will have a queue forming up outside the toilet, right? People are holding their pee in, waiting for the guy or girl inside to finish up. And you've put a nice little bubble fan machine there. So if you're standing there and you need something to distract yourself from the pee, you can just keep pressing that, right? What's even more fun is inside the men's room, you've got a large sort of bathtub filled with ice, which to me is super, super quirky and super fun because, I mean, God knows men have trouble aiming when they're drunk, right? The really nice touch that I got out of going to Silly was the little drinking card game that you've got as well, right? I mean, very few places really go into that kind of depth to imagine how the experience or the vibe is going to be, right? And I really love what you guys have put together as the package. I'm sure as you build the restaurant brand further, it will see its own evolutions. You might change things, tweak things, but you've really got the building blocks of an experience that is very unique and very fun, right? I remember when we were talking about this, you said, hey, I've really taken inspiration from a lot of places that people have gone and told me that, hey, I really like this thing in Ibiza, right? Or I really like this thing that I saw in
Miami,
whatever, right? Wherever. Right. Can you tell me maybe 2 or 3 of these specific instances that really stood out to you while you were conceptualizing Silly, right? Maybe a text message or a picture that a friend sent. What stories come to mind?
So I'm not a traveling person.
Sure.
Right. I generally don't like. So for me, it's like traveling can be done. It's just like I feel like you can do something out of it.
Right.
People call it a vacation. I don't call it a vacation.
Sure.
But a matter of fact that you take a vacation and when you come back, you're again stressed.
Sure.
You can't call it a vacation.
Right.
Because there also you going for a vacation, then you want to do bits and pieces and you want to go there, you're there. You're still running around. It's not, you've not got a break from yourself.
I agree. I hope my wife is listening.
For me, like a break could be like a family time or like going for a drive or chilling with friends for a couple of hours or like just being there, right? Mm-hmm. Spending time with my dog. That's my vacation kind of a thing. So my friends love to travel. Like I have a lot of friends who love traveling to places there's no tomorrow. Like today we are talking, they're like, okay, tomorrow you just left. And I'm like, okay. So in a way, for me, Instagram played the biggest role and my friends did. They kept going to places and they kept going out with their families, their friends. And everybody likes to post a story, right? So initially I could just see the stories and then I went in a way that, okay, let's do a deal. Whenever y'all go, if I have few places that I want you to check out, just go there, have a look, send me pictures. And if y'all particularly feel that, why wouldn't you want this in your city? Mm-hmm. Forget about me, forget the brand or anything else. Today you go out and people take inspirations and come out of there. Be like, why can't our city have this? Can be anything. Right. Can be food, can be alcohol, can be your sitting, can be the vibe, anything. They started sending me pictures. They started me sending menus. They started telling me this is something different. The best experience still now that any of my friends have enjoyed and all of these people that I've seen is Bargatel.
Sure.
I personally feel it's one of the best restaurants that I have seen in a very different manner altogether, where a fine dining is a restaurant and turns out to be a bar in itself, where people take the initiative of standing and starting the enjoyment. Right. That's exactly what you do normally at a wedding or a party where one person has to come out and start dancing and that's how they take it out there. That was one of the inspirations. Second for me was Olive.
Right.
Mr. A.D. Singh. Like the other day when I met you also, I told you like he's been there for 22 years and more to go. His concept, his idea towards the place and how he's done it, the color combinations, to the touch of a bit of gravels, to the sitting arrangement, having a tree out there, making sure it's consistent. It's for people who love to go out to restaurants, like try different ones. You know one thing, that if you are out somewhere in some other country or wherever, or in the city, you know Olive is there. You know that's one safe spot for you to be like, you can enjoy your food and the vibe.
Right.
So these two places, I would just say, because nothing's coming out of my mind right now. But I think those were the best. And that's what inspired me to be like, okay, this is something different. Like till date, you would go to Olive.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
They've got great wine selection. You always get good quality food. It's not like
The
I've
different
never
kind of
had
concepts also that keep coming with.
Right.
At this time also.
So tell me this, right? For you, I mean, by concept, Silly is a place which is different things to different people, right? How do you look at business through the week, right? Are you looking at different programming? I know you've got a clear point of view on music, right? That, hey, I want it to have a certain vibe, the progressive house bit. The other day when I was there, we had a guy playing handpan, right? And handpan and sort of grooving it up with progressive house, which was super unique and super interesting. But how do you look at things through the week, right? Is there a certain idea or format that's emerging with how you're looking at building it?
Yeah, so like how you came on the Thursday and he was there, that was a very different concept altogether. Reason being, people love to listen to different instruments.
Sure.
When we talk about throughout the week, it's not in a business point of view, but in a way you go out in a week because you want to just relax. Like how people wanted to be, weekends are the most heaviest one. Weekdays you want to chill, be it with whoever it can be. That chill can become maybe a later thing, that how you want to. It can be some kind of a break for you. So I didn't want to create something on a Wednesday or a Friday, Saturday.
Right.
As of now, I've not planned it because I feel like there are so many places that are amazingly good. You can't talk about them also. The way they do it.
Right.
The way they convert their restaurant or a bar into a place where you don't want to leave the place.
Sure.
Be it with the small things that they do or the artists that they get down and whatnot. So we went like, okay, what are the days where people are getting really stressed about it? In a way, so like I'm talking about 3 years back, BKC was never famous for Tuesdays.
Right.
And there's this one restaurant which came up with a concept or ladies' night on a Tuesday night, which was different. And the amount of ladies that kept going out there, because they know their husbands or family or their kid or somebody will go out. They get a weekday, right, for them. That's exactly why most of the times we see kitty parties happening on a weekday than a weekend.
Sure.
So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, people like to chill, go out and whatnot. Monday is the most heaviest one for everybody.
Right.
No matter what, you call a week ahead of you, you plan the whole week out, you got to have meetings, whatnot. Monday we came up with a concept where we so I was with my friends and I saw this friend of mine who is a mentalist and a magician. Yeah.
Right.
What he does is something very different.
Sure.
I met him when I was damn stressed about Silly. It was lockdown time, second lockdown.
Right.
Because we just opened 9 days and we had to shut down. I met him because all of my friends came over and whatnot. I was so stressed. He did some tricks. He played with my mind. I don't know what he did. To a level I was so scared that I'm like, this guy's going to take every money that I have because he knew my ATM password also.
Wow.
So it came in a way that it literally changed my mind that time.
Sure.
It gave me a break.
Sure.
So that's when I went like, okay, this is something really different. So Monday we started having Naman on board, where he comes in for 3 hours, he comes on every table, plays around with you for 15, 20 minutes odd. You will forget what's going on. Brilliant. And that's exactly what we want to sell as. So the whole concept also lies out there. You come however you feel, but you go out when you're smiling. Our thing was, you should feel better once you leave the property.
Sure.
I should not be like hammered, I'm stressed, I still have to go to work. You should feel like you're happy.
Right.
Even if you're working out there, you're chilling out there, you're just sitting and having a cup of coffee. Once you leave, you should feel better. And that's what idea was. We will create in some points where we can add something to the place and for the people where they feel different.
Right.
Or they feel something that relaxes them or makes them feel like they are in the zone. Handpan is something that people don't know about yet.
Yeah, oh man. My favorite instrument, like hands down, jokes apart, but I love it.
Right? So handpan is a soothing thing. Handpan came in a place where people used to use it for meditation, yoga, around the globe, leaving India. India just started building us in the past 1 year. It's majorly there in Kashmir.
Right.
So that is something which is very soothing. This guy I met out of nowhere, which started playing with progressive house.
Right.
So we went like, okay, let's tune it down. Let's make it in a way that a pan makes you feel better. It calms you down. And the music.
Sure.
So that played well. So we're just trying right now. We do mistakes. Every day I'm learning. Every day I'm seeing something or the other. But it's not something that I feel like, how's it a deal breaker?
Sure.
How's it a deal breaker for the people? It's not about the business. It's about the people who come down on a weekday. Weekends, you can still expect people to come down because they want to go out.
Sure, of course.
Right. So how you spoke about weekdays. So we went like weekdays, we'll keep adding something. Something that changes the perspective about a restaurant bar or a fine dine in a way that people want to get out and they can feel better.
Love it. Let me double click on the part that you brought up as well, which is opening up during the pandemic. Now I know that the story that you've told me is that many years ago, you and your friends were sitting at Hoppy Pola. So Silly is where Hoppy Pola used to be in Khar, for folks who know Bombay. For folks who don't know Bombay, ignore. You were sitting in this place, beautiful 5,000 square feet space. You were with your friends and you were saying, hey, if in case Hoppy Pola shuts down in the next 5 years, we'll take this space up and we'll make something cool out of it, which you have done, right? Which is amazing. But then fate always has different plans, right? You started this in March 2020, finally realizing the dream of taking over that space, and then the pandemic hits, right? I want you to talk us through your state of mind then, right? Because that's something that we'll talk about in the second half of the episode as well, is that you've got a very different Gen Z attitude, right? And I just wanted, for my listeners to really get a sense of that. So what was your state of mind when the pandemic hit 9 days into opening a new restaurant? What was going through your mind then?
Frankly, I was shocked.
Right.
I won't lie. There's nothing to hide about it. We started on 24th March last year. And 4th April is when the government went like, that's it.
Right.
Second lockdown. And I'm like, okay. Like there's processing because there has to be some way out. So, and especially the letters were not out. Nothing was out there where people are like, okay, our restaurant is shutting down. What is happening? Is it a complete lockdown? Are we seeing something different? 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th is something like the first 4 days, I was just packing stuff with my stuff.
Right.
Like what took us months to build and keep it in every place, we had to pack it up completely. So nothing gets spoiled, obviously. Like for the furniture and crockeries and all, we were packing. And in that 4 days, 5 days only, I was like, okay. I was just calming down. People were asking me how does it feel, like how this came in. It took me a lot of time to get out of it also, to understand what just happened. Because for me, it was very difficult because being 21 that time, starting a business, somewhere being proud of myself, that at least I've kickstarted something. Something that people would want and something that maybe gets people happiness. I didn't know what to do. So I started crying for the first 2 days.
Right.
And I was just talking to my mom and I'm like, Mom, I don't know if we'll kickstart again. Because the first lockdown was 6 months. You've got rentals on board, you've got other expenditures, you've got staff that you've hired. Those are your main help. You've got other vendors. Everything was really shut. I was just crying to my mom, like, Mom, I don't know. I'm just going to fail again, I think. And I don't know I'll be able to pick myself. My mom just told me one thing. Let's say it starts after 1 year. What are you going to do? Are you going to start again or what not? I'm like, yeah, I will. So she was like, exactly. So hold on to yourself, see what happens. Start it out whenever the government says that the lockdown's off and people can start going out. And that time, see what you want to do. If it took you years to think of an idea and start a restaurant bar, the amount of struggles you had to go, because the first time we were locking a property was in 2020 and the lockdown came in. So she at that time also you went like, your progress is going to be delayed.
But did you have a plan B at the time? You're like, okay, now I'm going to, I don't know, go back to my family business or do something else?
No.
You were like, okay, cool.
Because my mom just told me one thing, like, just stick to it. If when it starts, you do it your way. If it'll happen, or like more 6 months after you start. People may like it, people may not like it, or you'll have to do some changes to the place. So that was it. And
shout out to your mom, man. I think, and I've heard her influence and impact on Silly.
It did, trust me, because that first 2 days when I was crying to her, she was really unwell. And so the third day itself, she got COVID and then she got black fungus.
Oh, wow.
And we all were shaken. And like that period was also there. But that was what got me to start back again once the lockdown was off. That was 25th June, if I'm not wrong. That is what made me feel that this is what I am. Because my mom did not give up. She was smiling, laughing when she got COVID and when she got black fungus. She's like, it's okay. It's just part and parcel of life. The amount of pain, because no one knew what's going to happen. She had to cut down her jaw, whatnot. I'm like, how is this person going to be like, it's okay.
Right.
Here people are talking about death scares and you don't know what's going to happen. She's like, I'll live again, right? That's what matters. And that's what got me there. Because every day when she was in the room, I was calling her up. I was asking her, how are you doing? What now? She went like, well, how are you doing? What are you doing? So then a couple of my friends also helped me out. They were like, okay, start reading books.
Right.
See what's impacted people. And that's the second time I heard a podcast. Right. Like I spoke to you about before this. Because that's when Riya sir was doing a podcast. And he was talking about the first lockdown and how people came back and how it's going to impact the business. How it's going to turn the tables around for
Sure.
us in a very different level.
Sure.
And NRA being the support of it. So those were the bits and pieces, I think, here and there, which made me feel like, okay, now I can calm down. The whole world is going through it, even I am. We can see what can happen, and then that can be a later part of it.
And what great validation for it, right? Look at where you are right now. Look at the fact that folks in Bombay specifically, and I'm sure around the world, are really going out with a vengeance, right? And I don't see it stopping at any point in time. I feel like the pandemic has given everyone a little bit of pause to be like, yaar, ek hi zindagi hai. Jo karna hai, abhi kar lete hain. The rest of it we can figure. Before we go on and talk about silly, I'm going to be silly and go take a break. Be right back after these messages on Storytellers and Storysellers. We're talking to Karan Nohria. And we're back. This is Storytellers and Storysellers with me, Vineet Kanabar. We're talking to Karan Nohria, who runs definitely Bombay's buzziest restaurant right now. If you haven't been to Silly, go to Silly. They have a smashing tequila cocktail, which I had to force drink because of Karan, and I wanted to keep up with his age. Karan is 22, as you must know if you've heard the first part of this episode. If you've not, go do it. And I want to ask you this, right? And this is something that I have lots of chats with people my age. Gen Z folks, I'm not going to say kids because they're not kids. Gen Z folks tend to have a very different approach to doing things or a work ethic. They're very smart, right? I think by far Gen Z folks are way smarter than what my generation was generally. I think my generation had more bookish, smart people, which is why, I think ours was the sort of last golden generation of your IIT, IIM kids and really well-educated sort of folks. But I think Gen Z kids who are born with the internet just have access to so much more. They're better clued into so many things, and that makes them generally smarter. Again, ये opinion सिर्फ मेरा है, IVM का इसमें कोई हाथ नहीं. That said, I have always felt that sometimes the application of that knowledge or developing a strong work ethic is something that Gen Z folks tend to not come to grips with very easily. First of all, do you agree when you see things around you, or do you think I'm just an old fart running his mouth?
No, I feel somewhere correct. Like in places where you feel like some of them are doing, like I would say more than some of them.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people, because obviously, like you said, there's an age gap, right? Between both of us also today.
Right.
It's the people that you meet and what they want to do. Social media has played the biggest role. Everybody wants to just keep growing.
Right.
On a daily basis.
Right.
And I feel personally education plays that role. Your friends, family, people around you. That's exactly how you decide what you want to do and what not. It's just something that clicks you.
Sure.
Right? So like I was finding one once I left my studies because I wanted to do something practically instead of studying out there. That's what is different. People are smart. Everybody is. It's just some people really want to do it and some people be like, okay, I want to actually study. So the people that we talk about who are not doing something, I feel like personally they're just studying. Because they have a different approach towards it. They want to be somewhere. Like some people have an idea that instead of starting our own company, I'll just buy this company later.
Sure.
By growing out there, right? Some people have that. Some people be like, okay, slowly, steadily, if something on my way clicks in, I can. And I personally feel the people around me and the people which I meet on a daily basis, I feel they all have a thing that why not grow in a different level? So some people are studying, they're hustling somewhere also.
Sure.
Can be through an idea that they want to break. An IIT or a person also thinks of an idea that they want to break. So it's those years that they've studied, right? So it's the same thing right now. It's just people, today everybody wants to not just chill. They want to meet different people. That's exactly how social media says. They want to learn from different people. Today we have this podcast that we are sitting at here. It's people are learning. I learned one from somebody I heard. That's exactly. So you learn and that's when you feel like, okay, why not?
Sure. Let me actually ask you something related that just popped into my head, right? I remember when we were talking, you said you spend a lot of time reading, listening, learning and stuff, right? I'm sure a lot of folks around us and with the sort of plethora of content that's actually available, whether you want to tune into a YouTube video or a podcast or a book or whatever, everything is available, right? And I grew up in a time when the internet was just starting. Everything wasn't as available as it was right now, right? Like we didn't have a Flipkart to just be like, hey, I want to buy a book. It's going to be available there. Or we didn't have a Spotify for that matter, right? I want to listen to a podcast. What I want to ask your notes on is, how did you set goals for yourself when you were doing this, right? Was there a conscious process saying, hey, I'm going to set learning goals for myself for this time and then I'm going to actually do tangible goals? How did you negotiate that in your mind?
I've seen my parents always working, right? I've just seen them constantly being out there, trying to figure out something or the other for us or for themselves and whatnot. And so was it for my friends' parents.
Sure.
So around me, it was always about business people having their own business or doing something. So I think at the early stage only, I figured that I want to start a business some way or the other. Maybe a family business I would like to continue and start something else in it, or start my own business.
Sure.
That was an approach that I had at my initial stages itself when I was in my 7th, 8th standard. And after my 12th, I went so I've studied in an IB. So, so IB has this good thing that they give you 6 months in the later part. You complete your education before 24 months. And they give those 6 months to figure out what you want to do.
Sure.
Do you want to travel and shift abroad, or do you want to stay back? That's what it was for us. So that's when I told my parents, I sat with them, I asked them, I don't want to go abroad. I don't want to continue studying. What if I start continuing the family business? Something around. I want to see, I'll take a break for some time.
Sure.
And I'm still not done. Sometimes I still be okay, mom, I'll just start studying, right? And that's what it was. So I went let's just do practical studies, which is by learning through people, sitting with them, sitting at conferences, listen to people. The way they talk is something that you feel you want to grow. That's what was there. So I never kept a learning period for myself, being okay, I'll learn, I'll read, and then I'll get into it. Even when it came to resto bars, I thought of an idea, started working on it. But obviously, to start it, there has to be a starting point.
Sure.
So the idea was the first. Second was the books out there. Because it's easy to open one. The backdrop can be a lot.
Sure.
You're back and you should be strong on your basics about what all is needed to open a resto bar and what all has to be done. You just can't blow money out there. It's a hard-earned money.
Sure.
And you need to focus on what are the basics so that you don't go down.
Sure.
So then I think in the period of time, it was on a daily basis till now. For me, learning is every day. And something or the other, I keep learning words out there, whatnot. Initially also right now. So I'm never going to be I had a learning stage and then I got into practical. It's always been practical got me into learning on a daily basis.
Love it, man. I think what I'm taking away out of this is that folks in Gen Z are learning, and maybe there is a day that comes when they're something clicks in them and says, okay, now doing starts. Maybe I'll look at that as my sort of perspective on young people, and maybe I'll unlock some insight. There's a second thing that I get from you is get your basics in place, right? I think it's a truism. It sounds very cliched when you say it like this, but it's super important, right? I think there is no running away from this. You're not inventing something new. You're not, discovering electricity, or you're not, inventing the light bulb. You're doing a business that has been done by many people before. Find your unique factor, but don't forget the basics, right? Get the damn basics in place, whether it's from a book, whether it's from a podcast, whether it's wherever else. You have this wealth of knowledge to fall back on and fall back on it. I think that's super important. That said, and when this is back to talking about Silly, when you opened this up, right, when you ran it in the first phase and then you ran it after, were there learnings or on the job that made you go, whoa, wait, 1 second, I learned something else, and the actual behavior is totally different. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I think it's normally for, I'll just say in a way that it's normally for everybody. What you studied in your school and your college life, it's when you get into a job or you start working somewhere, it's completely different, right? What you learn from people is also different. So there were points where I felt okay, when it came to a simplest example was the sitting arrangement. Why do you need a 2 sitting? Why do you need a 4 sitting? Why do you need a 6? And so on. It is necessary. But Bombay being said, Bombay is a very small place when it comes to restaurant. We don't have such big places that we can open so many of them.
Sure.
You can't have a lot of sitting in one place itself because the location is as such, the area is as such, and you got to keep so many. You want to add something or the other. It's not.
So how many tables usually does a dining place in Bombay have? Maybe 40 max?
More
on average, 35, 40?
Yeah, 35, 40. I would say. Yeah.
Give or take, right? I think
more than that. Only I think 2-3 places right now I know I have more than that. But
Sure.
I think around average out 50 is the max I've seen till now. But so the basic thing you got, why do you need it? So I learned, okay, you need 2, 4, 6. I had not learned 10, 12, 14.
Right.
And I'm okay, this I can't do.
Right.
Because when I was sitting with my designers, I was sitting with my team, they were okay, what would you do if there's a big group?
Hmm.
You can add 4 together, you can add 6 together. What are the 20 people? I'm
Right.
okay, right. this I did not think about.
Sure.
Because some people can be like, okay, they want to have a birthday dinner together, or they want to just sit together, they was just whatnot. That was one. Second was your water and electricity. People always say that, you know what, save electricity. In a normal, not just household, but in restaurants also, save electricity. I learned in a way that electricity is going to be used in this much of volt and whatnot, but I did not learn there are different power points to every place that is needed. There are times that you need to keep something on for 365 days, and that was not written somewhere, or I did not learn it from someone. A simple example like a fridge also of yours, but household fridges and a fridge that you use in a cold storage for a kitchen is very completely different.
Yeah, you need the 3-phase power and all that stuff, right?
That was there. Then your flooring structure.
Right.
So this something I broke the thing where people, in the books I read, you would have a proper flooring, you know, people should be able to walk because you need to think about the toddlers, the normal men and the female. Not every female wears sneakers these days that they've started. They prefer heels and they're happy with it. Then came in about handicapped people who have something or the other. They have trouble walking in, walking down, or something or the other. They need some help, some difficulties that they have in life. So for me, I added gravels. That was the biggest task for us. The amount of people who went like, Karan, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. And I'm like, can we break somewhere?
Right.
So bits and pieces here and there, which was written in the books, which went like, you know what, the bar structure is supposed to be this way, the kitchen is supposed to have that. I did not know you need a kitchen or dessert section, you used to have a double door towards it and whatnot. So bits and pieces, areas here and there where you felt like what can be changed that was written out there and why you're doing it. And it's completely different sometimes. It is different when you talk about uniform, for a matter of fact. So those were things that I learned on a book, and I went like, when I started learning it in the process, when I was talking to people, my designers, my team, they were like, you can't do this, you can't do that. But I'm like, I learned it. I can show it to you. I have it written also from this page and whatnot, because the basics of it. They were like, but it is not how it is, because you got to think about it practically also. Is it possible or is it not possible?
Love it, man. I think all of these are very interesting things that as someone who has eaten at a lot of restaurants, I've never thought about, right? Why you need a double door for a dessert counter? I mean, I can think why it's important. You know, guys walking in, maybe it just needs to open more easily. I mean, the kind of logic you have for the gravel and accessibility just doesn't make sense. But it's so interesting to see these applications are top of mind for someone like you, right? Let me ask you this from an advice point of view, right? If I were to say, hey, man, in your journey of a year and a half, 2 years doing this and 5 years of dreaming about it, what mistakes would you warn other entrepreneurs your age about, right? And what learnings would you want to give to them? Maybe we can have one of each.
My first point would be listen to people.
Sure.
So when you have an idea, I was very hand-bound. Like, I want to do this, means I want to do this. It's my idea. I was like, you know what? If I make it, I break it. It's a different scenario, definitely. But there were people who kept on saying that, Karan, don't do it. Don't do it. And I was like, let's do it. So I feel like, listen to people. Keep yourself on the ground.
Sure.
It is good when it's in the power, because initial stages look good. You feel like you've achieved something and whatnot. Keep yourself low.
Sure.
Keep yourself low. In a way, you don't know what can come in. Like, I did not see a pandemic coming. I did not see a second lockdown coming. I did not see a timing of 4 o'clock or a Saturday, Sunday being shut in the initial stages. I did not see a third issue coming in Jan or whatnot. In the 1 year period, there were so many learnings, and I felt like people had warned me. And keep your expenses limited. Sure. Just don't keep out there, just keeping and spending out there where you were like, I want to do this, I want to do that. So how you spoke about the silly card game and whatnot, there are a lot of ideas that I want to keep in. I'm like, okay, you can use it for some other project also in the first one, or if not, but don't blow out just because you've earned it. But keep it low, keep it tight, so that you know if anything goes on, you can help them or you can help yourself in a way. These 3 things I think are the best learnings till now. And I'm making sure for the second one that I'm opening, I'm doing the same thing right now. I'm making sure that I'm listening to people. I'm seeing what has to be done, expenditure-wise, everything, all of it, everything that I've learned in the past 1 year. Yeah.
Love it, man. I want to ask you about profitability, but I already know your answer because we talked about this before. Karan's take on profitability is very simple. And I think this comes from having the security of being a well-capitalized business and also spending a lot of time making sure that your costs are under control and you're, like he said, staying humble, keeping your feet on the ground. But Karan's take on profitability was, I'm not running after money. I'm here to build a great product. If people see the value, they will come to it. If people come to it, money will follow. So my intention is to continue to give people a great experience, to build a great product. And he's now taking Silly as the great product that he's built in Bombay to Delhi, right? He's in the process of scoping out the space, doing fit outs. I think all of that is...
Yeah, the work's already in process.
Yeah, love it, man. Before we wrap up and let you go, I want to ask you two questions. One is, what happens to Karan Nohria in the next 5 years?
We've got plans. I've got some few plans in pipeline. Want to grow in the same business, definitely, at different cities. I've told you about Silly, how Silly is for the people with the place and whatnot. I want to keep the silliness for every city that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 3 in our pipelines right now. One's in process. We are launching Delhi in November, Hyderabad, Goa next year and next year. So yeah, so the 5 years plan, I would say, I have not kept it yet. I had not kept it last year. I kept it this year for Delhi, Hyderabad, Goa, because I feel maybe something can come in. I don't know. So it would just be like, make sure that I open more Silly in different cities. But I'll keep it slow. I don't want to be like, okay, have it planned. So it means I need to do it. Like I've told you before, the money is not the thing that comes in my mind, because obviously it is a lot of money that you have to invest out there. But also you need to see how approachable are you to your places. Like
Sure.
when I'm doing Bombay and Delhi, like the travel, the time, like in a way that I'm spending there and I'm spending here. Need to figure out that also. So I'm like, you know what, let's just go slow, plan 3 places right now, so that we know at least where we're going to stand after 3 years instead of 5 years.
Got it. Love it. And my second question is, what's the story behind the name Silly?
So I was 18, 19, so in my 18, 19 was there, people were like, everybody started using this word out of nowhere, randomly, when I was at Hoppy Polo also. People used to call me the too silly, doing something or the other. Word, not just word silly, but also to the areas of the words that you use silly. So something or the other kept coming in, and when the plan was, we were in the opening time, people were like, okay, what's the name? I had a group of friends out at the place, and we were like looking at the place was ready, the trials are going on, and they're like, what's the name? I'm like, genuinely, I don't have one. I don't know how to name a place, because you can think of it. I didn't think of a name, because I learned one thing from my designer was, he went like, you design the place, then you can come with a name.
Sure.
You can't be like, this is the name, and then you have the name and then you plan it accordingly. I had a plan in hand, but I didn't have a name in hand. So they're like, let's see how it turns out to be. Because you don't know, it's not a forced thing. Like, it's not a square that you can be like, this area, this. You've got different areas to it. So people, we had chits at our place. We were like, okay, let's pick 1-1. And we were 10 of us. We started keep picking 1 of us. And then they were all been like, okay, we'll select 3. Out of nowhere, they kept feeling like, this is such a silly thing. Karan, you're so silly. And I'm like, dude, just like calm down. And I'm like, okay, like this word silly, how about we name it Silly?
Love it.
We were chilling. And they were like, yeah, bro, it's a good name. And you're like, it's a good name. It can go with the place. Because I didn't want people to tell us in a way, like I didn't want to tell people that, you know what, this is what we are. We're not we're like a cafe, restaurant, bar, dine-in, whatnot. We wanted people to tell us that how they find this place for themselves from every age category. And that's how Silly was. And then I think I told somebody that, you know what, just write it down in a group. So that group was in a way that was written on a registered group.
Right.
And I had to give the answer by morning 6 o'clock.
Right.
I woke up and then I'm like, I called the lady. I'm like, I'm really sorry, don't have a name. I'll give it by today evening. She's like, the name is already out. I'm like, what? She's like, Silly. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I loved the name. I was thinking of keeping it. I wanted to talk to my mother about it and few other people around in this industry that how do you think of this name with the place? Because they've been there. She went like, it is. I'm like, okay, done. I've done a mistake. I've not done a mistake. I love the name. People call me one. It's a replica of me. And if it works out in a way that people like it in themselves, and everybody is silly. So I'm like, it is for everybody. So let's just keep it that.
Fantastic, man. Everybody is silly. Absolutely. I would agree so much. Before I let you go, last question, I promise. What is the one thing that you would like everyone who goes to Silly to order?
Nothing in particular.
Nothing in particular.
Nothing in
Hey, this is the time when you tell them, this is my specialty. Like, come on, man.
I wouldn't keep it on the menu if it wasn't special.
Okay, then the vibe.
Yeah.
So go for the vibe.
Go
stay
for the vibe.
tequila
Decide
cocktail.
what you are in the mood of. Today, maybe I'm in a mood of Italian, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm in the mood of Indian, or I'm in the mood of Asian. I don't know. I generally like, I'm a very moody person, so I personally feel like I can't tell somebody that, you should really order this. I feel like not just me, but any other restaurants they keep it on the menu because they feel like it is going to go to the place and it is for the people, right? So I would be like, drink more. Because that goes, but the food, let them decide.
Love it. So go to Silly for the vibe and the drinks, eat what you like, and definitely try the tequila cocktail and the swing and the really amazing toilet.
Bathtub.
Do the bathtub for sure. That's it. Great conversation, Karan Nohria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great having you on the show. I hope you had fun. That's it. From me, Vineet Kanabar, on this episode of Storytellers and Storysellers. Thank you to everyone who helps put this show together at IVM. This is me saying goodbye.